Hi there, and welcome to Studio SN, your place for card making, rubber stamping, and paper crafting tutorials. My name is Sara Naumann, and I'm so very glad you're here. Today I want to share a fun and easy way to get a beautiful background on your cards using acrylic paints and the Gelli Arts gel printing plate. Now I'm working with the small plate here, which is the perfect size. It's 3 inches by 5 inches, and that's going to give me this really cool rectangular shape on the background of my card. It's a super easy technique to do, so let's take a look. First of all, let's take a look at the gel printing plate. I've had a lot of requests for videos on this, and I think lots of people have seen it in the store, but maybe didn't know how it works. So I'm going to share with you a really simple process for using it today. So you've got, in the package, you've got a little clamshell. Now this is where I store my gel plate when it's not in use, so do hang on to that. You've also got your instructions and some hints and tips on here as well. So you've got some information and then a step-by-step process on here. You've also got a kind of a plastic liner here, so I do hang on to that. And that's how I keep everything neat and tidy and keep everything dust-free on my gel plate. So you can see it's a flexible plate like this, and this is what you're going to be applying your paint on top of. Now I'm working onto a craft sheet, and I'm going to put a piece of scrap paper underneath and then just put my plate right on top. I'm going to be working with a couple of tools. First and foremost is my brayer. This is what I'm going to use to apply my paint on here. I'm also going to be using some acrylic paints. Now this is what's recommended for use with the gel plate, is an acrylic paint. And I'm working with PaperArtsy's Fresco Finish Chalk Acrylics in Butter and Blue Lagoon. So I'm going to be brayering both of these onto my gel plate. I'm always working onto a craft sheet. That's a really important tool because that's of course going to protect my work surface. As far as what I'll print onto, I'm using regular copy paper. So this is not a sturdy, heavyweight cardstock like I normally use for cards. You can use that. I just find that once I get going and I'm printing a lot of papers, that really this is a cost-effective way to go. So what I'm going to do is put a little bit of paint onto my craft sheet. And again, working with the butter, I'm just going to put a little bit of this onto my craft sheet. Now you'll probably see a lot of people put their paint directly onto their gel plate, and you can definitely do that. I find that if I put my paint onto my craft sheet first though, this ensures that I'm not overdoing it with the paint on my gel plate, because you want to have quite a thin layer of paint on here. You don't want to overdo it. A nice thin layer is exactly what you need. And if I'm putting my paint directly on here, I have a tendency to put too much on. So that's how simple it is to brayer on that butter yellow. But what I'm going to do is pick up a little bit of that Blue Lagoon and just add a little bit on here as well. So I have a nice kind of textured looking effect. Now you can blend this as much as you want to or as little as you want to. It's completely up to you. And then while that paint is wet, I'm going to bring in my copy paper and just smooth this on top. It's important that I work pretty quickly. I don't want to leave this on here because then the paint will dry. But then I have an effect that looks like this. It's just beautiful. Now it's called a monoprint because of course you're always going to get a different looking effect, and this one seems to have more butter yellow in there. So why don't we just add a little bit more on here. You can keep going as much as you want to. Mix those colors, blend those colors. You can use stencils and cutting dies and other tools to make marks in the wet paint, and I'll talk about that in a future video as well. So now I've got a little bit more teal on here, and just press this down and pull this up, and you can see again that I've gotten some really different cool effects. So you can get lots and lots of different variations just from two very simple colors. Now I'm going to move aside my brayer and kind of mop things up here because I want to show you how I did the rest of the background and some other elements that I've used on my card. To clean your gel plate, just use a baby wipe and smooth off some of that excess paint, especially around the edges. And then you're just going to pop this back into the clamshell packaging, and that will keep everything nice and clean. So I'm going to move that aside and then show you again the card. So you'll notice I've got some spattering effect on here. And this is a process that I love to do. I'm going to be using my water brush for this, and I'm also using some permanent black ink from Altenew, and I've got a little bit of water here. So what I'll do is take one of my mono printed pieces, and I'm just going to put a little bit of black ink onto my craft sheet, add a little bit of water next to it. I'm going to pick this up with my water brush. This is the water brush I reserve for use with black ink. And then I'm just going to spatter this on here. So this again gives me another nice bit of dimension and texture on my card. And so then I've got a really cool background ready to go. Okay, I'm going to mop this up one more time. You can see how important that craft sheet is, and bring back in my original card. So you can see I've just simply trimmed this down, mounted it up onto some black cardstock, and then added a little bit of die cutting embellishments on here. Now the stamps that I'm working with are from Altenew, and this is the Many Thanks stamp set. So you can see I use this one down here. There's thank you in all different fonts and really cool typography. The dies that I'm working with, I'm using the framed dies for the inside and the outside here. And then I'm also using Altenew's Freeform Greenery die for all of my die cut embellishments on here. So you don't need to have a whole lot going on because of course you've got this really beautiful multicolored background. And because you're putting on a thin layer of that acrylic paint, it's going to dry really quickly and you will be ready to put together your card very easily. So this is how you can use your Gelli plate, gel printing plate, for creating beautiful backgrounds with acrylic paints. Thank you so much for joining me today on Studio SN. If you enjoyed today's show, please subscribe to Studio SN on YouTube, and I'll keep you updated on the very latest stamping and card making techniques. In the meantime, please feel free to stop by my website at saranaumann.com. Thanks again, and I will see you next week.